Good afternoon and welcome to the Midnight News. Coming up in the newscast, 2 St. Catherine policemen shot in freak accident. Family of teacher who was shot and killed by her boyfriend in St. Mary mourns the loss of another relative. And later in sports, Olympics silver medalist Kishane Thompson says he's ready to run fast at Saturday's Eugene Diamond League meet in the U.S. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amoy Harriet. Here are the details. Up first this afternoon, an investigation has been launched into the shooting of 2 policemen in St. Catherine this morning. Now, it's not clear how the incident occurred. However, TVJ News understands that both men were accidentally shot at the Central Village Police Station in Spanish Town. The lawmen are said to be attached to the Area 5 Police Division. They were rushed to hospital for treatment. And of course, we'll have more details in subsequent newscasts. The family of the 21-year-old teacher who was shot and killed by her police boyfriend in St. Mary last month has been plunged into mourning again. Another relative was found dead this morning, just hours after the teacher's night. They say lightning doesn't strike in the same place twice. But for the family of 21-year-old Dejanay Graham, tragedy has found its way in for a second time. Dejanay was shot and killed by her police boyfriend during a domestic dispute in St. Mary on June 25. The family hasn't even laid the young teacher to rest as yet, but they're now forced to plan another funeral. Dejanay's cousin, 57-year-old Artnell Douglas, was found dead at his home in Essex St. Mary Friday morning. It's believed he died of natural causes, but still, his death has added salt to the wound of the already grieving relatives. He died mere hours after his cousin's night. TVJ News understands that he left home to attend the event but didn't stay long.
After a while, me look through my window and me see him sit down on the veranda there. So I say, right did. All the item come in, so me did I say, Keisha. I didn't know Keisha man and me. So me I say, all the item come in, so party was early and him say, he have to run him take away himself because wall move broke out down there. Me I say, right.
I them shoot you 2 persons.
Yeah, that I don't have the setup. He say, why move it broke out down there? Me I say, what the hell you say?
After returning home from the wake, Mr. Douglas didn't make it to bed.
Going at the 3 o'clock this morning, me hear him phone alarm and me hear the phone alarm and me I say, ratted. It look like brother left him phone out on the veranda. And me say, that's the only thing. And when me get up here now and go there, so me I say, ratted him van never, but it look like him van not there, man. It look like him gone for move. Keisha me see come here now. After Keisha come and I come down. Keisha says, see brother on the veranda, they too ratted.
As for the mayhem that unfolded at the night, TVJ News understands that 2 persons were murdered there in what is believed to be a reprisal killing for Dejanay's death. We'll have more details on this in primetime news at 7. 2 illegal firearms and several rounds of ammunition were seized during a crime prevention operation in Roaring River, Steertown, St. Anne on Thursday night. During a search of a bar and the outer perimeter of an abandoned building, officers discovered 2 9mm pistols placed on a motor vehicle rim. They include a silver and black Smith & Wesson 9mm pistol with a magazine containing 15 rounds and a black Taurus Gen 2 9mm pistol with a magazine holding 6 rounds. Both weapons had their serial numbers affixed. Now, 10 men who were at the location were taken into custody pending further investigations. Now, a man is dead and another on the run following an alleged shootout with police in St. Thomas on Thursday. The deceased has been identified as 27-year-old Jadel Christie. Now, reports are that a police team acting on information conducted a targeted raid at a house in 12 Miles Bull Bay, where upon entering the premises, they came under heavy gunfire from the now deceased and another suspect. The team returned gunfire in the direction of the suspects. Now, when the shooting subsided, Mr. Christie was discovered suffering from gunshot wounds, clutching a firearm. The second suspect fled the area on foot with his weapon. Now, it's unclear if he was injured. Now, Mr. Christie was rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The St. James Police Corporation has removed several Free Palestine signs that were illegally erected across Montego Bay ahead of the 49th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting scheduled for next week. The opening ceremony will be on Sunday, July 6, and the meeting sessions from July 7 to 8 at the Montego Bay Convention Center. Now, the signs, which were erected near the Sangster International Airport, were taken down by municipal police this morning following concerns that they could spark controversy during the high-level regional talks. Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon, has issued a stern warning to individuals and groups behind the posters, declaring that no unauthorized signage or protest materials will be allowed in public spaces during the lead-up to and for the duration of the summit.
The requisite area of the law that would permit persons to come and freely place them on these streets. Therefore, they are in breach. The local authority needs no directive, needs no resolution, needs no motion to have these signs removed, because we are a creature of statute. And automatically, once there's a breach, the team from the Commercial Services Department will be activated to naturally carry out the law, to activate it and to carry out the law. So the team is here to remove these signs, and they are in breach, and I'm asking the persons associated with them to desist from doing so. Cease and desist from posting these signs within the area or wherever in Montego Bay.
The CARICOM meeting is expected to draw regional leaders and international observers to Montego Bay, with security forces on high alert to maintain order and ensure a smooth staging of the event. The People's National Party PNP hierarchy has entered into what the party says is the penultimate stage of its election campaign. During its bus tour series, the party will be visiting constituencies across the country. Now, we spoke with General Secretary Dr. Dayton Campbell.
This is an opportunity for us to connect with comrades across the different parishes, for us to share our message. So we have different speakers. Each stop we will have the candidate for the constituency speaking, along with a national speaker speaking about our plans, and also the party leader addressing the crowd.
The party remains confident that it has done enough to win the elections.
The message is time come for a better quality of life, time come for a better Jamaica. We're not saying that nothing at all is going on, but things can be done in a better way. There has to be a better way. And we're saying to our people, hold strain, because better must come.
The Education Ministry is facing mounting criticism over how students are placed in high schools following the primary exit profile PEP exams. Parents and educators are demanding more transparency in the process and greater equity among schools. Shane Masters reports.
President of the National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica, NPTAJ, Stuart Jacobs, says parents are frustrated and confused after their children weren't placed in the schools of their choice. He's calling on the Education Ministry to come clean about how placement decisions are made.
I do wish that the day will come when all schools are on an even keel, where you get the school that you get the choice for, and if you don't, then the school that is second or third is just as good a school, that is perceived a good a school as a first choice. Where there is a clear understanding that needs to be done here and now is for a greater explanation we're given someone to the parents. Why is it that the child wasn't placed in the school of their choice?
Mr. Jacobs also argues that placement stress is made worse because not all schools are on equal footing. He's urging urgent investment to make schools within the same community equally attractive. Now, Chief Education Officer in the Education Ministry, Terrian Thomas Gale, says over 7,200 students were successfully placed in their first choice schools this year. But she admits more work is needed to raise standards at underperforming institutions.
The truth is our schools, and this is the conversation that I'm hoping that our leaders, Mr. Wright being one such, will have, that the leadership of these institutions and the parenting support and the students, they are the ones who make the schools who they are. And if you're saying that we in the ministry, we do give support to all our institutions. All our institutions are resourced. And we do spend more time in these schools that are deemed not ideal. We do resource these schools more than we do the others. And so as a ministry representative, it would not be fair for me to say that these schools are not properly resourced. They are issues, and even in the top tier schools, the ones that are preferred choices, there are issues as well.
The call for transparency comes after the president of the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, JAPS, Linvern Wright, accused the ministry earlier this week of withholding key details about the placement system. Now, as the new academic year approaches, stakeholders are watching closely to see if changes will be made. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Still in education, the government has officially launched the change management methodology for the public sector. The modernization program is aimed at enhancing service delivery, streamlining operations, and aligning public administration with Jamaica's evolving development priorities. Carrie-Ann Simpson has the details.
Global research has shown that 70% of change programs fail to achieve their goals. It is why the government of Jamaica has taken steps to develop a methodology to be used in the public sector to enhance project success. Finance Minister Favour Williams officially launched the methodology, which is in the form of a playbook. The playbook was developed by the Transformation Implementation Unit TIU and is positioned as a practical guide to drive effective and sustainable transformation across government ministries, departments, and agencies.
Like many nations, Jamaica faces challenges, some inherited, others emerging. These challenges demand that we reimagine how our public sector operates. Key among these challenges are inefficiency and outdated systems that stymie growth and innovation. And we have been identifying those systems and taking steps.
She said the next phase will be results-driven, embedding in performance, accountability, and citizen experience at the core of service delivery.
The next phase will demand more resources, more coordination, and much more change leadership than phase one. But the scale of the challenge only reinforces the importance of getting it right.
And Mrs. Williams noted that phase one of the public sector transformation program laid a solid foundation for reform.
We're now in the final stages of approval for the next phase, and I'm excited about what it represents. The new chapter will accelerate digitization to improve accessibility, efficiency, and transparency. It will build capacity within the public service so our officers are equipped for the 21st century challenges.
Carrie-Ann Simpson, TVJ News.
And it's time now for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to Midday News. It's now time for the Business Minute.
Blue Power Group Limited reported a profit of $137 million for the year ending April 30, 2025, a decline from the $173 million earned in the previous year. Now, despite the dip in profits, total comprehensive income rose to $184 million, up from $173 million a year earlier. The company says the results reflect compressed margins caused by higher raw material costs and a 40% duty now imposed on essential inputs under CARICOM trade rules. Still, Blue Power remained competitive and posted a 13% year-to-date growth in revenue, despite the challenges. The U.S. economy added 147,000 jobs last month, according to the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's higher than many economists had forecast, and it's a slight bump from the 144,000 gained during the month of May. The national unemployment rate in June also fell 0.1% to 4.1%. For the Business Minute, I'm O'Shane Masters.
Thanks, Shane. Time now for the top stories from around the world.
In the region, Suriname is set to make history this Sunday when Jennifer Simons is expected to become the first country head to the president of the Dutch-speaking Caribbean Community CARICOM country. Her path to presidency was effectively cleared when the Progressive Reform Party of outgoing President Chandrika Persad Santokhi announced it would not nominate candidates for either the presidency or the vice presidency. Simons, representing the National Democratic Party NDP, and Gregory Rusland of the National Party of Suriname NPS as her running mate for vice president have secured the backing of 34 members of the National Assembly, exactly the number required for election in the first round. On the international scene, the U.S. has lifted its chip restrictions against China. The three leading chip design software companies say they were notified by the Commerce Department that the export curbs introduced in May have been rescinded. This announcement comes after a new trade agreement was finalized last week in London. Under the deal, the U.S. agreed to lift export curbs on chips software, while China would approve the exports of rare earth minerals to the U.S. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Nakinsky Robinson.
Thanks, Nakinsky. Now it's time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report.